The most exciting jobs on the internet are almost always the most overrated ones. Everyone wants to be a content creator or a social media manager or a brand influencer. But here's what nobody talks about: the boring jobs, the ones that sound like you would fall asleep reading the job descriptions. Today, I'm breaking down 5 boring online jobs that pay really well right now. And most of these jobs do not require a traditional 4-year degree. I'm also going to rate each one of these for how accessible they are and how strong the earning potential actually is, so you know exactly what you're walking into. And if you find value in this type of content, then please go ahead and hit that like button for me. It helps more people find this video. Let's get into it. Job number 1 is data taxonomy specialist. Now, this role builds the organizational systems that make massive corporate databases actually usable. So think of it like being a professional librarian for digital data, except instead of physical books, you're sorting millions of files, records, and data points into precise category structures, the kind of order that entire companies depend on to function properly. And without it, the data is basically unusable. And a lot of companies right now are drowning in unusable data. So what does this job actually look like on a random Tuesday afternoon? Well, you are creating classification systems and category structures for large data sets. You're also tagging and labeling data so it is searchable, consistent, and usable across the whole organization, not just by one team, but by everyone who touches that data. You are working inside content management systems, data platforms, or in a lot of cases right now, AI training pipelines. And you will collaborate with data engineers and product teams to make sure the taxonomy standards you build actually hold up as the data continues to grow. And you audit existing data structures, flagging for gaps or inconsistencies before they become bigger problems down the road. Now, here's what companies are actually looking for when they post these types of roles. Most of them want familiarity with information architecture, metadata standards, or database organization, a background in library science, information science, or data administration is a strong foundation, but it's not necessarily the only way in. At the entry level, especially at companies that are building out AI and machine learning pipelines right now, the bar is lower than you might think. They need people who can tag and classify content consistently and accurately over long periods. Attention to detail and patience matter more than credentials at that level. If you can do the same thing correctly 500 times in a row without cutting corners, you are already more qualified than most applicants. And of course, there are no guarantees. I am not telling you that you are going to get this position. Here's your action checklist for this role: information architecture or metadata knowledge, and this can also be self-taught. Also, familiarity with at least one database or content management platform, whether this is Drupal, SharePoint, or Salesforce. If you are aiming at entry-level AI and ML data labeling roles, those require significantly less experience. So that is a real starting point. For senior roles, DAMA or CDMP certifications will strengthen your applications. And the good news is that no 4-year degree is required for most entry-level pipeline and labeling positions. And before you apply to any of these taxonomy positions, make sure you double, triple check the job description to make sure you're qualified and you have the proper experience before applying. So here's why the boring factor actually works in your favor on this one. This role is overlooked specifically because the title sounds dry and the work sounds tedious. And that is exactly why your competition pool is smaller than you would expect. Lower application competition is a real advantage. Most people scroll right past the job title. And right now, AI and ML growth is creating massive demand for clean, well-organized training data. Companies need this done, and they need it done right. And this role is all digital, all structured, no office required. And if you build experience here, the career path leads directly to data architect or information manager roles, which pay significantly more. throw up some recent salary ranges from Glassdoor, but again, make sure you do your research as this can change greatly, and it's also going to depend on your experience and your education. And before you apply to a single one of these positions, make sure you download the resume scanner below in the description. It tells you exactly what your resume is missing before a human ever sees it. Quality assurance. In this role, your job is to find problems in software before real users ever see them. You work from structured test scripts, clicking through apps and websites, running features through their paces, and documenting everything that breaks or behaves unexpectedly. Then feeding that information back to the development team so it gets fixed before the product ships. And day to day with this role, you execute test scripts across web apps, mobile apps, and software platforms. When you find something wrong, you document it with clear steps to reproduce environment, expected behavior, actual behavior, all of it. And you run regression tests to confirm that bugs that were previously fixed have not quietly come back into a new build. Then you test across different devices, different browsers, different operating systems, different screen sizes, and you communicate your findings directly to developers and product managers so they can prioritize what gets fixed. So it's the same flows, the same steps, build after build, methodical and repetitive by design. And this is what companies actually want. QA is one of those few tech-adjacent remote roles where you do not need a computer science degree to get started. What they care about is precision, the ability to follow a test plan exactly and communicate what went wrong in clear, reproducible terms. That said, showing up with zero preparation is still a long shot. A recognized certification proves you understand how software testing actually works. You also want to know at least one of the main bug tracking platforms before you apply. Pair that with some documented test cases, even from personal projects, and you are a credible applicant. Zero credentials plus zero prep is not a realistic path to a paid role in this space. Also for this role, you'll need the ISTQB Foundation level certification. This is the most recognized QA credential globally, and a lot of job postings will require it. You can also go to Coursera or Udemy for QA courses that are low cost, employer recognized. Of course, that does not guarantee you employment. You want to learn at least one bug tracking tool before you apply. Jira, TestRail, or Bugzilla. Get a basic understanding of the software development lifecycle, which you can pick up from any free online resource. So why the boring factor works here. You are running the same test sequences on every new build, the same screens, the same buttons, the same pathways every single sprint. Repetitive by design, but here's the upside. Software never stops being built or updated. It is consistently in demand across every industry that ships software. Fintech, healthcare tech, e-commerce, SaaS, freelance and contract QA work is widely available. The role is online and most QA teams are fully distributed and async friendly. And if you want to grow, this is a natural gateway into software development, product management, or UX research. I'll go ahead and pull up Glassdoor now to show you a range of these salaries. Always do your research to make sure that you have the proper experience as well as a proper educational background before applying to any of these positions. Medical coding specialist. This role translates patient visits, diagnosis, and medical procedures into standardized billing codes. Those codes are what make healthcare billing and insurance claims actually function. Every time a patient sees a doctor, a coder is the person making sure the paperwork speaks the right language so the providers get reimbursed correctly and legally. So day to day in this role, you're going to review clinical documentation, physician notes, lab results, procedure reports. You assign accurate ICD-10, CPT, and HCPCS codes to diagnoses and procedures. You then submit those coded records to billing departments and insurance carriers. Now, when documentation is incomplete or unclear, you go back to the physician or clinical staff to clarify before actually submitting. And you stay current with annual code updates and payer-specific billing guidelines because those change every year and accuracy is non-negotiable. Now, experience for this position, unlike some roles on the list, medical coding has a clear credential requirement. You will not land an online coding role without a certification. This is not negotiable. Most online coding programs run 6 to 12 months. AAPC and AHIMA are the two main credentialing organizations, and both are widely recognized by hospitals, clinics, and health systems. If you have any prior background in healthcare, even in admin, patient intake, or as a medical assistant, that context significantly accelerates your learning curve. You already know the environment, and that matters. Also, you'll need a CPC certification, which you can get through AAPC. This stands for Certified Professional Coder, and it is the most common credential for outpatient roles. Also, CCS through AHIMA, which is Certified Coding Specialist, is preferred for hospital and inpatient settings. And again, most programs are completable in around 6 to 12 months, and they're fully online. And if you have any healthcare, admin, or clinical background, that gives you a real head start on the learning curve. And plan for annual continuing educational units, or CEUs, which are required to keep your credentials active once you have them. So why does the boring factor work here? Well, medical coding is code lookup, policy cross-referencing, and documentation review. The same types of decisions repeated thousands of times a week. It's not creative, it's not dynamic, but it is stable. I like to think of healthcare as being recession resistant. People do not stop needing medical care in a downturn. US regulations like HIPAA and CMS guidelines make it very difficult to send this work overseas. So domestic demand stays strong even when companies are cutting costs everywhere else. And as you build experience specializing in a field like oncology, cardiology, or orthopedics, can push your pay to the higher end of the range. I'll put up some of the current salaries from Glassdoor. Again, make sure you do your research. So depending on your experience, your education background, these salary ranges are going to vary. And of course, there are no guarantees of employment. I want to pause for a second because something just hit me, and I want to make sure that I mention this before I forget. You've been going through these jobs, and some of you are probably already thinking about which one you want to apply for. And that is great. That is exactly what I want. But here's where most people get stuck. And I have seen this happen over and over again. You find the job, you get excited, you update your resume, you apply, and then nothing, crickets. You apply to another one, nothing. You apply to 30, 40, 50 plus jobs, and you just keep hearing absolutely nothing back. It is genuinely frustrating because you are putting in the work. You are doing the thing. But what you do not realize is that most of those applications are not even being seen by an actual human. They're getting filtered out automatically by ATS before a recruiter ever opens the file. The resume goes into the black hole, and that is it. And the reason it keeps happening is almost always the same thing. The resume is missing the right keywords for that specific job description. It is not formatted in a way that the ATS can read, or it is not tailored to that specific role. And most people have no idea because the system just rejects it silently. I actually built a resume scanner exactly for this, and I'm going to put a link to it below in the description and in the pinned comment. You drop in your resume, you drop in the job description you are applying for, and it instantly shows you exactly what the resume is missing and why an ATS would reject it. Then it rewrites your resume with the corrections already built in, tailored to that specific job, ready to submit. Next job, content risk reviewer. This role evaluates flag posts, images, and videos against a company's content policy guidelines before a final moderation decision is actually made. You're not making personal judgment calls. You're applying a specific policy framework to each piece of content and determining whether it stays up, gets removed, or gets escalated to a senior reviewer or legal team. Structured procedural work inside large tech platforms. So the day-to-day here, you review flag content against detailed policy documentation and decision trees. You categorize violations, hate speech, misinformation, spam, graphic content, financial fraud. When something is ambiguous or high severity, you escalate it to senior reviewers or to the legal team rather than making the call yourself. And you maintain consistent accuracy across high daily review volumes, often under time pressure. And you document every single decision with a clear policy citation, so there is a record for audits and appeals. Every decision is traceable back to a policy. Most entry-level trust and safety roles do not require a specific degree. What they are looking for is policy comprehension, the ability to absorb a detailed rulebook and apply it consistently across thousands of decisions without drifting. That is the skill. Prior experience in compliance, legal support, or content moderation gives you a real advantage in the application process. And I want to flag something important here. Bilingual candidates, especially English plus Spanish, Arabic, Mandarin, or Portuguese, are in significantly higher demand at most major platforms, and they command meaningfully better pay. If you speak a second language, that is a genuine edge in this space. So here's your action checklist for this role. No specific degree required for most entry-level positions. That is the good news. Compliance, legal support, or prior content moderation experience is a strong differentiator. Bilingual fluency significantly increases both demand and your pay ceiling. Strong written communication is essential because every decision needs a documented policy citation, and familiarity with trust and safety concepts, escalation processes, appeals, policy framework structure is valued at every level. And regulatory pressure means this role keeps growing. You're reading policy documents and applying them to a checklist of flagged content. The same structure process repeated at scale. There is no room for improvisation. For someone who excels at following detailed guidelines consistently, that precision is directly compensated. Platform regulation is increasing globally, which means demand for reviewers grows alongside it. These roles are not a shrinking category. Large tech companies hire trust and safety reviewers at significant scale and continuously. Specializing in a policy area like child safety, financial fraud, or misinformation increases your pay ceiling over time. Depending on the platform, some versions of this job involve reviewing difficult content. That is worth researching before you apply. So know what the specific role involves. I'll go ahead and put up some of the recent salary ranges from Glassdoor. Make sure to do your research so you do have all the proper skills, experience, and education required before applying to these roles. This is not a guarantee of income or that you will get this role. If you're planning to apply to any of these jobs, then make sure you download the resume scanner and run your resume through it before you submit. I'll put a link below this video in the description so you can scan your resume. This is one I generally think is the most underestimated role on this entire list. It maintains accurate financial records for small to medium-sized businesses. Essentially, you categorize expenses, reconcile bank and credit card statements, manage what is owed in both directions, and keep the numbers organized so business owners actually understand where their money is going. And of course have clean records ready for taxes, lenders, or investors. Not glamorous, but needed. And day to day here, you categorize and reconcile transactions monthly in QuickBooks or similar software. You manage accounts payable, tracking what the business owes and making sure it gets paid on time. You also manage accounts receivable, so tracking what clients owe the business and following up when they don't pay. You reconcile bank and credit card statements and flag any discrepancies. You also prepare monthly financial reports, profit and loss statements, balance sheets, and cash flow summaries. And at tax time, you coordinate with the business's CPA or accountant with clean, organized records so they can do their job without spending hours untangling your work. And what companies and clients are actually looking for here, you do not need a full accounting degree, but you do need to show up prepared, not just eager. The QuickBooks Pro Advisor certification is the most recognized credential in this space because QuickBooks is what most small businesses actually run on. That credential signals to clients and employers that you know the tool they use every single day. Pair that with a working understanding of basic accounting principles, how debit and credits work, how financial statements statements relate to each other, and you are competitive for most bookkeeping roles and freelance clients right now. Here's your experience checklist. Make sure to have QuickBooks Pro Advisor certification. You can get this free through QuickBooks, which is widely recognized by clients and the most direct credentialing step you can take. Also, NACPB Certified Bookkeeper credential adds credibility if you want to pursue higher paying client work. And an associate's degree in accounting or business is common, but it's not always required. Any prior experience with spreadsheets, invoicing, or managing business finances is transferable. Do not undersell that background. And platforms like Belay, Bench, and virtual assistant networks actively hire bookkeepers, which gives you a way in while you're building your own client roster. So why does the boring factor work here? Well, you are reconciling the same transaction types every single month, categorizing, balancing, reporting. There's no drama in good bookkeeping. For the business owner, that is the whole point. For you, it means reoccurring predictable work from a consistent client base. Small businesses need their books done every month. Demand is strong from e-commerce stores, service businesses, real estate investors, and contractors. And if you want to grow, the career path leads to accounting manager, controller, or even fractional CFO with enough experience. I'll go ahead and throw up some recent Glassdoor salaries for bookkeepers, and this is going to vary across the board. So depending on your experience, your education, your skill sets, I am not guaranteeing in any way, shape, or form that you are going to make this money or even get a job as a bookkeeper. So please do your research before applying to this job or any of these jobs. And look, whether you go after one of these jobs or you decide you want to build something on the side instead, the one thing that is going to slow you down either way is a resume that keeps getting rejected before anyone sees it. So before you do anything else, download the resume scanner. I'll put a link below in the description. Run your current resume through it and at least know where you stand before you apply. And if you're looking for other online roles and side hustles, I actually just put together a video on 5 AI Claude side hustles for beginners. And honestly, it pairs perfectly with what we just covered because a lot of these remote job skills translate directly into things you can start charging for on your own. You can check that out by clicking on my video up here. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.